Good morning, and I hope everyone is doing well so far. I'm Joyce, and together with my colleagues, we run the StackX DevRel work here in GovTech. Many of you might be here today because in one way or another, you are currently working in a product team or will need to support product delivery. In this session, GovTechies Garrett, Regina, and Debbie will be sharing all about the GovTech Services Agile Coach team's Signature Agile Coaching approach. Garrett, Deputy Director in GovTech, will introduce the GovTech Services Agile Coach team. He will also share about working with other agencies across the public service. Regina and Debbie will then bring us through the details of their signature coaching approach and share case studies. Garrett, the time is all yours.
We are a team of Agile practitioners coaching government teams of Agile practices, right? Mindsets, processes, engineering practices, and so on, right? And this team consists of only practitioners, right? And we only hire practitioners, people who have led Agile teams, for example, Scrum, Kanban, for a number of years, right? That's because in myself and some of us have encountered so-called Agile coaches who don't have any practical experience in Agile teams, right? So they tend to coach from a very theory basis, and which I myself don't find very useful. And the difficulties of Agile is actually how to implement it, right? It's not so much on what's the theory behind it. Because theory is the easy part. Anybody just attend a Scrum Master course can talk in theory, right? And people with no practical experience find it hard to understand what are the challenges on the ground that the teams are facing, and they tend to propose something that is not very useful or not very realistic, right? Hence, here we believe that only practitioners are able to coach practitioners on the ground. Next slide. So, why do we provide Agile coaching, right? I think in general, there's a list of things I can read from here, but in general, it's basically for the better of Singapore, our citizens, our workforce, and our economy, right? And COVID-19 has shown us the importance of being agile and nimble. Like throughout this pandemic, I think everyone's very familiar, right? The situation is so dynamic that it changes every day, right? Plans can get reversed, it's a very dynamic situations, and to support the dynamic situations, that things changes on an everyday basis, right? Our systems also need to be able to enhance quickly, right? To be able to support the policies that comes with it or the regulation that comes with it, right? Hence, practicing of Agile, it enable us to handle or deal with such very unforeseeable situations. Yeah. Okay, next slide. And what do we do, right? As the term Agile coaching suggests, we coach teams on Agile, right? But we go beyond the standard Agile coaching, right? Like practices and all this. We go beyond that and we find that there's more value in going beyond that. So we go kind of upstream, right? Towards the budgeting side, even before anything gets started. We go to the budget, contractual, procurement, because we find that often the upstream activities have a lasting effect on the downstream activities, right? If the contract or, for example, if you do a wrong estimations, you are under budget, it definitely affects how we run later on, right? Hence, we actually do end-to-end, more end-to-end for all the way upstreams to all the way to product go live. That's what we covered, right? So the next slide. So quickly, outreach, we have started this journey in 2019, right? Joining together TalkWorks, right? We have coached over 30 government agencies so far. Listed some more prominent products, right? So with this, I'll hand over to my colleagues, Regina, who will share more about the coaching techniques and so on.
Yeah, hi everyone, and thanks a lot, Garrett. I see also a lot of familiar faces in the audience, and also some names. So I guess some of you have experienced the agile coaching approach in the teams that we work with. Some of you, we have partnered. So I have an audience here who is going to keep it real for us also. All right, so I'm very, very excited. And before we start, I know that we have a really large group today. I'm looking at the numbers climbing up right now. I'm curious about which sector and what experiences that you are bringing into this session. What kind of curiosity you have also. So I'm going to launch a poll right now, asking you which sector are you from. and whether you have any direct influence or whether you're in a product role. Yeah, so we're just gonna take a few seconds for this. Yeah, 4 choices to choose from, whether you're from the public sector or private sector. Okay, so I'm gonna hold the silence for a while. Okay, and the reason why we do this is also for us to, later on in our session, be able to bring some better examples and contextualize also. All right, great, thank you. Yeah, so it's about an equal mix from both public and private sector. And also, I know that there's some of you in the operation type of role. Yeah, so don't worry, there's something for you also. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to share the results over here so you get to see what I'm seeing also, just to appreciate, everyone in the room also. Yeah. All right, great. Yeah, so that's a little bit about, where you're coming from. And next curious question, what brings you to this meetup? Maybe you were wondering about, hey, I heard about Agile coaching, I wonder what it is, or I've experienced it a little bit, but I'm not quite sure what the magic is. And some of us is also to learn from each other. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna give another 20 more seconds. So already I'm starting to see the numbers climb up for you're curious to learn more about Agile coaching, product management. Okay, the team effect, all right, and then I think I've got about 20% of you interested in the team effect, and some of you also just generally curious about the topic. So I'm going to end the poll here. Yep. Okay. All right. And I think in the recent two years or so, Agile coaching as a profession has really also became more popular. But before we touch on, what the signature approach or what we find is the magic spark, right, that allows teams to create great products. Let's have a look at this rubric cube over here. And throughout this session, feel free to use the chat window. Yeah, so for us, we welcome a lot, that interaction. So if you want to put some comments or questions in the chat window, please go ahead and do so. So when we talk about solving the rubric cube, and you probably have seen some animation pop up already, right? I'm curious, how many of you have actually managed to solve the rubric cube on the first try? Anyone? Yeah, so you can put it in the chat window. And most of us will probably didn't solve the rubric cube right on the first try, right? You probably had to turn the cube around, try one combination, try the other combination to see if it works. Yeah, thank you. I already have some response. Yeah. And I didn't succeed on the first try also. But what is it that makes us try again and again, try the different combinations to make it work? Right? Probably it's a mixture of, hey, I want to solve this puzzle, or I'm curious. So that curiosity, that perseverance to try again and again to hit that goal of making all the colors work together, right? And there's also a skill set that is involved, right? Being able to see how all the different pieces work together, being able to think ahead a little bit and see if it works. If not, if it doesn't work, let's reverse and try again. Right, so it's a lot to do with having that combination of the mindset and skill sets when we talk about, solving something as complex as the Rubik's Cube. So when we talk about complex problems, and in today's VUCA world, a lot of the problems or challenges that teams and organizations face are multi-layered, right? So they are complex problems where no one single solution would magically solve the challenge. Yeah, and teams usually need to use a combination of solutions or a suite of solutions. Teams usually need to do some trial and error, and that's the nature of complex problems. So as we work with teams, we also realize that, hey, there are some common pitfalls. Yeah, that thinking that there will be one magical solution to solve the problem, or if there's already the sensing that we need a set of solutions to work together, often what we find is that where things might fall is that pointing up to the same goals, that solving the right problem, right? And most importantly, something that often is neglected, we feel, is the power of teams in solving complex problems. Right? It doesn't matter how great your features are, if your teams are having some friction, some challenges, if they're feeling uncertain, right? Then the complex problems become even more complex, because then you have that team effect in there. So in our team, together with towards a lot in the early part of the journey, as what Garrett has shared, right? We come in at different points of product life cycle to partner product teams, and it might be starting from an idea, conceptualizing into something small, and usually your team is much smaller. Sometimes we also come in at that point where the team has already made some releases. They have already issued the version 1 or version 2 into the market, and people are using it. And now they're at the stage where they are trying to build a larger product. And in instances like this, then usually we find that the team size would grow. So what happens when your team size grow? Your team actually has to work a lot more together. They have to learn together, and maybe they will also go back into the forming stage and have a bit of a storming, and before they get into norming and performing. And these teams, as they work together with the agile coaches also, there's a variety of skill sets that needs to be applied. So here then we're talking about, how do we manage products in an agile manner? How do we apply that design thinking, diversion and convergent thinking into that solution, into creating that best solution? Yeah, how do we start small with the lean startup method? And how can we use data to help us to ascertain whether we are going in the right direction? Couple all of this with, what we know as the agile way of working, in the way that we deliver products, in the way that you deliver development features and work together as a team. Yeah, then you have your agile methodologies coming in. Right now, what's quite popular in the teams that we work with, most of our teams are using Scrum, and we have a small number of teams that are starting to adopt Kanban practices also. Right, so that's, wow, quite a number of skill sets. And then we say, hey, you have a complex product, so you also have to take care of the interdependencies. You have to look at, how your product interacts with other teams, how it functions in an organization, and also have that outward thinking as to the products that is created, how is it going to solve the needs or serve the residents in Singapore or the Singapore citizens. Yeah, so we have all these skill set. And in the Agile Coach team, then what we would practice in partnering with the teams are these 4 modalities. We coach, facilitate, mentor, and teach. And what we find that is most impactful for teams is where, there's a lot of that approach around coaching and facilitation, so that teams are able to upskill themselves and are able at some point to self-facilitate and self-manage them as a team, right? So that creating that support structure, creating that assistance for the team to be able to grow into a resilient and adaptable one is something that we are very much focused on, combining those mindset and skill sets that we see here, right? So what happens when we work with teams? Some of the common observations and the emotions that we have the privilege to witness working with teams. As you go through the product life cycle, whether it's developing a new product, whether a product is growing and maturing, or whether a product is up to the stage where it needs to be rejuvenated, where you're looking at enhancements, or maybe your product is no longer valid. The team also goes through an emotional journey a lot of the times. And here then on the screen are some of the typical questions that teams ask us, right? So, we're not so clear about the problem that we're solving, or yay, we feel so much for the problem that we are solving. But then at some point, as we grow, as the product grows, as we put out our first or second version, we find that we are constantly running on a treadmill. We find that, we have to cope with many features to work on. So there's this emotional journey also, which also gives the sense that in order to have a great product, then it is necessary to also have some focus on the team. And what we also discover is that this phenomena, right, this emotional journey for the team and the questions that the team has is not only prevalent in the product development side. It is also the similar challenge also faced in the operations and the corporate support functions. Right, so everything that we see in terms of, are we solving the right problem? Are we making some assumptions? How are we validating our assumptions? Right, and last of all, what's really, really important, we find that is similar for both product development and if you're doing some operational work or business support work, that resilient, adaptable, stable teams is really the magic ingredient, right? So for us as a team, we got to think shaping this a little bit. So we've been working with teams a while, and then we thought, hey, how can we, or how might we help teams to jumpstart that teaming effect, right? So all the work that we have done, is there some way that we can provide some loose guidance for teams to use? Right, so you may not always have an agile coach, you may not always have the privilege of having a mentor. So how can you also put on, you know, that thinking cap to jumpstart the teaming effect? And when we look at the work that we're doing, and a lot of you in today's session, you might find that like, hey, not all of these might be new, and it might be very, very simple. But we also know that the things that are very, very simple, sometimes in our day-to-day, as we rush through the work that we have to do, it becomes a little bit challenging to practice also. So for our team, what we try to do is to encapsulate it in this enabling loop in terms of spotting the opportunity, starting from understanding what the current situation is, exploring what the options are. So let's not jump into solution mode. Let's first think about, hey, what are the different ways that we can solve this challenge, right? Is it always going to be a mobile app? Yeah, is it always going to be a website? Right, it might not be. All right, is it always going to be a digital solution? Might not be also, right? So exploring those options, and before selecting the top concept to put to action. And when we're getting into action, right, that's where the team feels that, hey, this is the point where we start to deliver value, and we want to deliver value early, right? So that team could be also under increasing pressure as they are going through the enabling loop and moving on to continuously improving. Yeah, so as they go through this enabling loop, they will also apply this variety of skill sets. And sometimes we have teams asking us, you know, which methodology should go first? Should I apply design thinking first? Should I apply the agile way of working? Or I've been told I need to look at all the dependencies, so systems thinking come into play. Right, so as a part of this enabling loop, we find that it's also necessary to have that perspective of the mindset, being flexible, being adaptive, collaborating, right? Focusing on that effectiveness, being very obsessed about what your user needs are, right? And continuously improve, continuously grow. So when we put all these pieces together, right, and then for us, we are always starting our engagement from the point of spotting that opportunity, right? Having an understanding of the current state. And we do this by asking a lot of questions. So I know that some of you are in the audience who have been exposed to us already, and some of you might be agile coaches also, or in a team facilitator role. Through this appreciative inquiry, asking with a sense of curiosity to understand the current situation of the team is something that we practice a lot. And how do we do this? By bringing in the team effect, right? If I were to just, bring it through an example, spotting the opportunity, and this is the part where we start to identify what the problem is. We start to define what the opportunity is, and a lot of times, that team effect doesn't only come at the point where we are putting things into action. It needs to start from the very beginning. And so for us, right, what we do right from the very beginning is to already get a sensing of that team temperature. How excited are you about the opportunity? How excited are your key stakeholders about the opportunity? Does the purpose resonate with you? Are you clear about the purpose? Right? As a team, how do you want to decide to go forward? Right? So you're not helpless as a team. There are also opportunities for you to move ahead and make decisions as a team. right? The same with exploring opportunities, where they go into ideation and find the top rated idea. That team confidence, how confident is the team? If you're feeling really confident, why? If you feel like, hey, your confidence level is a bit shaky, why? Right? So that opportunity to understand, the team undercurrents is really, really important. And looking at how might we support the team's needs. Or if your team is doing this yourself, to ask each other, how can we better support one another? And as we go through this loop, we are also incorporating these questions. What kind of support does the team need, right? We're not waiting until the end of a sprint if we are practicing Scrum, or the end of the month to do this check-in in a retrospective, right? So we're also having a mind of what are the internal processes and the external processes that are impeding or supporting the team, right? All the way through, all along this enabling loop. All right. With this additional layer, the questions that you see on the screen here in green are a lot of what we do. We also find that it lines up really, really well to the team coaching model of the parallel model. For those of you who are interested to find out a little bit more, the parallel model would be one that might be of interest. So I said a lot and a lot of theory, right? And for us, we believe that, theory is just everything on paper. Yeah, when we put it to the fire is where we start to work with teams, and everything that we have shared so far is encapsulating the learnings from teams. So putting up one example over here, and in the recent year, I've got to work with a team, and the reason why I highlighted this example is that it's not the model success case, right? Where everything number one, item 1 to 10 went really, really well. So the problem that the team was tasked with was to ensure business continuity, and they were tasked to find a solution for managing the records that they have in the organization. So as I work with the team, I realized that, hey, there were a lot of team members who had spent some time creating the requirements already in terms of user stories. So they were already having some knowledge of Agile, and they were practicing Scrum and the Scrum methodology, right? At the same time, they also have key stakeholders who were uncomfortable with practicing Agile, mainly because of that incremental and iterative approach that comes with Agile. So the key question for some of their key stakeholders was, how do we see the big picture? All right. So for us, the opportunity was to, hey, the team already has some expertise. How can we work together to help the team to solve that complex problem? So we applied the coaching approach, starting with the mindset, understanding where the team is at, right? Looking at the skill sets that are needed for them. They were in the stage of exploring options, and at the point of ideation. So a lot of design thinking work was put into play, and also that concept of the minimum viable product in lean startup. And for them, then what we in our engagement found out was that, that systems thinking about, what are the external pressures that the team face with the key stakeholders was also essential. So it was a very short coaching engagement over 2 weeks. And what we realized was that there was a shift. Once we started with the appreciative inquiry, bring in those questions that you see in green, really understanding, the team actually opened up and made it a really safe and open environment for everyone to contribute. They were also inspired by hearing some examples, and it was no longer as boring as I'm making a document management system, right? So it was geared more towards knowledge management. And what was most key is that for this team, they realized that they're not working on it alone. What they did was to also reach out amongst to the other agencies and see if other teams are working on similar things, so that they can leverage on the same technology, right? So in other words, this team has also in a very short time developed that system thinking to think outside of their own unit, to see how they might work well together and leverage on the good things that is happening in the organization. Right, so just giving a very, very small example over here of how we have applied the enabling loop and the coaching approach. So next, I'm going to invite Debbie, and Debbie and I, we work in the same team, and she's going to share with you this case study on how she has partnered the WINS DevOps team in Agile Coaching, and she'll share also with you some of the key outcomes that she has experienced in working with this team. Over to you, Debbie.
Thanks, Regina. Yeah, okay. Just want to confirm that you guys are able to see my screen, my screen, the full screen mode. Oh, it's good. Thanks, Joyce. Right. Okay. Hi, everyone. Yeah, thank you, Regina, and a very big thank you to everyone else who is here for making the time to be here with us today. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the case study that we're looking at today, which is the WINS DevOps team. The Ministry of Manpower embarked on their journey to revamp the existing legacy systems for managing work parcels in 2013. And since then, the in-house team have grown from strength to strength. And today, we have almost 200 people working on product development in the WINS program office. The WINS DevOps team is the central team responsible for the setup and maintenance of both the CI/CD pipelines and the WINS infrastructure. So a few years ago, the DevOps team began to find themselves constantly overloaded and overwhelmed as the work requests started to mount up. They tried to multitask and take on more work items at the same time as everyone started piling requests upon them. Work was being picked up based on whoever has the loudest voice, and technical debt was being accumulated day by day as the team fulfilled most requests manually. So this resulted in a workload that kept on increasing exponentially as the WINS product team continues to scale up. The team was also split by specialization similar to how a component team works. Every engineer has his or her own backlog that is related to the tech stack that they are most familiar with. There's no visibility of the work at the team level, and what's more, work items that don't belong to any specialization often fell into no man's land, and it was difficult to get people to work on them. It is thus no wonder that the team morale at that point of time was extremely low. People were working overtime endlessly and getting burnt out. The attrition rate was at an all-time high. The team was well aware that they have a serious problem on their hands, and they recognized that to improve the situation, they needed a new way of working. Hence, over the past couple of years, they have experimented with both Scrum and focus rotation. In 2021, the team started learning about the Kanban framework, and they realized that Kanban might be more suitable for them. As such, they started to experiment with the new framework with the support of the GovTech Agile Coach team. So we first got started on the transformation by building awareness in the team to prepare them for the change. It is important for the team to learn about the framework and how it can benefit them and improve their working conditions before we get started. Change is difficult for everyone, and it often involves having to break habits that are formed over a lifetime. There will be resistance, and it is unavoidable. But if we start right by first preparing their mindset, we can reduce the potential resistance that comes along the way. So the approach we used during this phase was gamification and activity-based workshops. For the training, we used the Kanban pizza and the Kanban board game to help the team understand the importance of visualization and the concept of flow. From our experience, gamification and activity-based workshops works much better than PowerPoint-based lectures. So at this stage, people are not likely to remember the theory that we go through with them. But however, they will remember how they set up workflows and improved on them while making pizza together with their teammates. Most people will exit this stage not remembering a single principle that we talked about during the training. But however, the most important takeaway for the team is for them to have the general awareness and excitement on what's going to happen and be prepared to change themselves along the way. Next, the team started working on setting up the Kanban system. So one of the key foundation principles of Kanban is to start with what we do now and to respect the current process. It is also essential for the team to have their work items be visible to all on a common board. As such, the team started working on mapping out the value stream of the different work they do and visualizing the workflows. As the team was previously split by specialization, they were working with a few thousand work items scattered across 6 boards in 2 Jira projects, 1 board in Trello, and multiple Excel spreadsheets and emails stored locally on everyone's laptops. The team took months to go through everything before they could be consolidated on a single Kanban board. Once this exercise had been completed, the team realized it drew them closer, as they now know what everyone else are working on, as well as what is currently pending them together as a team. Following this, we also set up a prioritization framework, prioritization system where tasks are prioritized on a weekly basis. The team was required to start picking up tasks from top of the new single product backlog instead of by their specialization. As a result of this, the team grew to understand the concept of value and started delivering based on what can provide the highest value to the WINS product instead of whoever has the loudest voice. The team also started experimenting with WIP limits. During the training phase, they understood how lower WIP limits can reduce context switching and improve the rate which tasks are being completed. So the actual WIP limit for each person at that point in time ranged from 1 to 8. We adopted the team average of 3 as the WIP limit for everyone, and the team agreed to work on reducing it over time. Once we have got the above in place, it is time to start running. Our emphasis during this phase was on explicit policies and cross-training. Having explicit policies makes it easy for people to do the right things and do them right. So the team's approach is to work on refining policies and processes using multiple avenues based on the team and everyone else's preferences. Once the processes have been aligned, one of the team members will then document it in the Confluence. This helps to drive productivity by reducing the think time needed for decisions, especially during operational work. We encourage cross-training with the team using a multi-pronged approach. Okay, first of all, as mentioned earlier, the team can only pick up tasks from the top of the backlog. This means that most of the time, they will need to pair with a subject matter expert or SME to complete the task. For this to happen naturally, we worked on convincing everyone on the team on how cross-training other people can help to reduce their own workload in the future, and how the mentoring skills gained from this experience may benefit their own career progression. In addition, we also work proactively to pull people together for pairing or swarming whenever possible until this becomes second nature to the team. The engineers are also intentionally paired with a different partner each time for production support to give them more pairing opportunities across the team. To support the team, the management also made it clear that they are aware that during this period of time, because of this initiative, things may move slower, and they make sure to assure the team that the team is not going to get penalized for it. So after a few months, the team found that they had improved in terms of knowledge and skills as they started learning from one another while working on tasks outside their previous domain. They also had greater flexibility and reduced buzz factor together as a team. Further, they also experienced improved team bonding from working together constantly. People no longer feel that they are struggling alone. Right, Kanban is a change management methodology and want to encourage changes in an incremental and collaborative manner. Okay, we engage in retrospectives and frequent one-to-one sessions with team members, as well as external stakeholders to generate ideas for process improvements. So the team is constantly experimenting with new ideas to find out what works and what kind of changes needs to be made. Changes are always made in bite-sized chunks to reduce resistance. We'll go through an example of how the team changed the standard format from the standard 3 questions to walking the board in this manner in the next slide. Constant effort is also needed to continue the mindset shift of both the DevOps team members and external stakeholders. As all of us know, habits and behaviors takes a long time to be changed. Therefore, our team members had to keep on reminding each other on the new way of working in order for us to realize the benefits of the transformation. We also had to constantly talk to various WINS stakeholders to reiterate the new processes, seeking feedback for improvements, and making them a part of the improvement process. The team found that this actually gives the stakeholders a sense of involvement in the whole transformation process, and it brings about better collaboration as well. As promised earlier, this is how we implemented the change to move the team to walking the board. So Kanban's change management method which is to introduce small incremental evolutionary change over time, is designed to meet with minimal resistance. Big sweeping changes are usually discouraged as they generally encounter increased resistance due to fear or uncertainty. So the team was actually initially very resistant to walking the board. They had tried it a few years ago, and it took them more than 1.5 hours to complete the walk each time. Hence, we decided to respect the current process and continue with the Scrum style, which everyone was used to, which is the 3 questions as all of us are familiar with. So 6 months later, after we started, the team had transited to a more mature stage in their common transformation, and the number of work in progress items had fallen drastically to a more management level. At this point, we moved the team to an intermediate format where we walk the list of items that are in progress. The focus of the conversation during the stand-up changed from updating the team on what people do to whether if there's any updates or any blockers for the work items. Eventually, after a few months, the team moved once again to actually walking the board, where the focus changed to managing the flow of the work items and how the team can move them towards the right. So it is now coming to almost 1 year since the team started on the transformation journey, and we have achieved much since then. So the team now has increased visibility of the work items on their plate, and everyone is aware and familiar with what everyone else is working on. They have improved in terms of knowledge and learning opportunities as they started learning from one another on work items outside their previous domains. The team has also increased their buzz factor for most of their tech stack. The workload is now more evenly distributed, and most of the team members no longer feel as overwhelmed as before. There's increased productivity due to better focus from lesser context switching. The team has also improved on the delivery of high-value work as their attention is now fully focused on the work with highest priority. And all in all, the general consensus from the team is that they feel that they're in a much better shape compared to a year ago when they first embarked on this transformation. The individuals feel happier, work much lesser overtime, and they feel much better supported by everyone else in the team. From a reflection upon this journey, our coaching team has gleaned some learning points which we'd like to share with everyone. First of all, building transparency in the way of working really works. The explicit policies and prioritization framework which was put into place made the objective and status of each work item visible to everyone in the team. So this ensures that the team can prioritize and work on the most valuable items. It also has an unexpected positive impact. Incidentally, we have found that the transparent policies implemented in the centralized DevOps team have played a part in shaping the focus on the product mindset over time across the multiple development squads and beans. When the other squads are able to understand why the DevOps teams is working on certain things at certain times, it builds trust across the whole product development team that valuable items will be worked on at the right time. And this keeps the focus on building a great product. Secondly, cross-functional training is essential to building up a strong team. Initially, the team started out with a buzz factor of 1. There are lots of specialists, or what we will call heroes. If one of them is on leave, usually very few others can cover. The cross-training that the team did had helped to even out the workload and reduce the risk of team members burning out. And usually for infrastructure teams, incoming work items at any given time have a high likelihood of impacting the same tech stack. So now cross-trained team members can now help each other out instead of having everything being loaded onto one person. Last but not least, it's vital to practice caring for the team first. Products are developed by people, not machines. So as such, to create great products, we need to put people at the center of our focus. If you are the Scrum Master or the delivery manager, make yourself useful to the team. Care for the team by proactively asking and anticipating their needs and concerns. Help the team out with their most painful issues, such as too much overtime, pressure from other teams, feelings of being burnt out, or it could also be related to job insecurity caused by contract issues. Some useful questions that you can use in the conversations include, how can I support you better? Or can you share with me your issues or pain points at work? do consider each team member's preferred communication styles as well. Some people prefer to talk face-to-face, while others prefer texting to having verbal conversations. Always remember, to build projects around motivated individuals, we need to give them the environment and the support they need. And before I end off, I would like to present the awesome One Wins DevOps team to you. Okay, these are the guys who have put in the painstaking efforts for the transformation throughout this past year. Thank you for accepting me as part of the team and working together with us as true partners in this transformation. So we will continue to support you in the exciting journey towards higher Kanban maturity. With that, I thank everyone for your time once again, and I will hand you back over to Regina for the activity time. Thank you.
Thanks again, both all of our speakers, Garrett, Regina, and Debbie. It was really interesting to learn how teams can make use of this approach and apply it to their respective scenarios. I see that we do have a few questions in the chat, so I'll leave it to our speakers to take these up later. And now we've come to the part of the meetup where you can finally put whatever you've learned to practice. So our GovTech trainers, Regina, Debbie, Will, and Coco will facilitate this 15-minute session, and you'll be put into the breakout room soon. So this quick activity will let you practice this coaching approach on common use cases, and you'll be invited back to the main room for a summary sharing by your respective facilitators later. So do stay on as our speakers will answer any questions that you have. Regina, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Joyce. Yeah, so this is the point where we always say like, hey, okay, lots of sharing, lots of theory. Let's put it to the fire. So as what Joyce have shared, 15 minutes, and we put out this case study scenario, and it's quite a common one. So just 2 slides over here, I'll give a bit of a story, and you will be channeled automatically into a breakout room where you get to experience that coaching approach. And for some of you, if you have worked with teams before also, you can feel free to also throw out some questions and share your thoughts so we get to learn from each other. So in this scenario, just very quickly, Team X has developed a product. They made the first release 3 months ago, and the product is all about helping staff to keep track of the numerous learnings that they have to take on, the numerous trainings that they have to take on. This product also allows for personalization of that learning journey and setting that learning milestones. So this was to satisfy many of the requests from staff, and the product owner has also obtained the approval for the next 2 years. So all the features have been defined already. All right. So when the team released the first version, they realized that the adoption was not as highly taken by a lot of the users. Yeah, so a lot of people were not using it, and they start to question their product strategy. They start to question even the upcoming features for the next releases. A lot of the clarification sessions or the product backlog refinement sessions with the product owners and the key stakeholders was filled with a lot of tension, right? So there was a lot of undercurrent building. And this has also impacted or starting to impact the rate of delivery for the team. So Team X has reached out to you for help, right? So in each of your breakout room, you'll be finding out how you can best help Team X. What are the first things that you want to start with? Okay, so 15 minutes, and you will be put into breakout rooms that are fairly large. Yeah. So you get to learn from each other, and those of you who want to observe, that's also perfectly fine. Yeah, you can use the chat window and ask questions also. So very quick share back from the facilitators. Will, you want to go first? What are the key insights?
Sure, I can go first. So I guess the room itself, everybody participated quite actively. So there were certain things that we were like hypothesizing and trying to see whether there's a problem with, let's say, for example, the transparency within the team. When a product roadmap was actually built, was the team initially involved in the discussions? So some of the ideas that was thrown out was that, so maybe when we start talking about product roadmap, should bring the development team in earlier on. And also we noted that there was, let's say, multiple departments involved and multiple people giving the requirements, and yet the product roadmap has been set for 2 years. So we're also wondering that, if we were to start all of this again, maybe what would be a good approach is to like first engage, do proper user research, get everybody aligned first before starting to build anything. That's another thing. General transparency and buy-in from everyone, building of trust is some other things that we actually talk about as well within the room. Yeah, I won't go on for too long, just to give you a chance to talk as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to add on because in my room, I think the first instinct was to jump into a little bit of okay, here's what we do next. We conduct the retrospective. One very good one was getting further feedback to support the data that we're seeing with the low adoption rate. Really understanding, and towards the end, there was a sharing about what about the team dynamics? How is the team feeling? Is there some friction or tension in there because of this, unexpected turn of events also? Yeah. Coco, Debbie, anything new to add on?
Yeah, in my breakout room, we have a very interesting analogy and example. It's super interesting. So they are talking about meeting the users and understand the current pain points and process and issues, right? Then there is this example, say, let's streamline the product requirements. So I asked, what does it mean by streamline the product requirements? So Yu-Hui, give me an example of the bowl of Meetup. Right? So some people say, oh, I want more vinegar. Some people say, no, I want more chili. Some people say, I want more, the spring onions and all those things, right? So then the bowl of meatball in the end become what? A bowl of rojak, right? So that doesn't meet the requirements of the general users, or that just make the entire product a bit funny. So streamlining product requirements is it could be part of the spotting opportunities where we need to sift out what is really important when during the product development. Yeah, so that's from my room. Thank you.
Yeah, and Debbie, just very quickly before we move on to the Q&A.
Right. Okay. So I think my room started with coming up with different ideas of how to gather data. So we wanted to talk to individual team members, talk to the users as well by conducting interviews or conducting surveys to get the feedback from them. Okay. One thing that the team highlighted was that there was no problem statement to begin with. Okay. So users were the application was developed. The application was actually developed following multiple requests from the users, but in the first place, we didn't even know whether if they have a real problem to start with. So we probably need to do more research to find out more on this. Okay, and also another thing which the team highlighted, another very interesting which the team our room highlighted was that when we are being caught in to solve a problem as a coach, right? Sometimes it may not be so appropriate for us to jump straight into exploring options quickly, right? Because sometimes we need to remember that there are always key stakeholders such as the product owner. So it may not be appropriate for the coach to come in and just supersede the authority of the PO. So we probably need to get the buy-in the PO, find out from them whether if they think they have a problem, get them on board, and asking him all these questions should be the first thing that we start to do. Yeah, that's what my room was focusing on before we got pulled back to the main room.
Yeah, and 15 minutes I was just like wondering, and for some of us we might be like, oh, it's not enough, right? So now Q&A, let's jump over to the Q&A, and that's where we can answer maybe some of the curious questions, right? Maybe for some of the for the two examples that we shared, if you want to ask more specific into how the enabling loop was applied, right? So feel free to put your questions into the chat window. Earlier in the session, we had one that was about, what kind of games that was played. So Debbie, I believe in your team, you played the pizza game. And also, did you try the Kanban game also? And we have Darwin here also.
Yes, we played the pizza game, and we also did the online Kanban board game together with the team. So that helps everyone to actually understand the concept of flow. I think the team had a great time playing the game against each other as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I see one question in the chat, and that's about, what are some of the prerequisites an organization would require before practicing the enabling loop? When I see this question, the first thing comes to mind, because a lot of times, sometimes teams and also leaders ask, right? What comes first, skills first or mindset? So I'm going to put this question to everyone. What comes first, skills or mindset? And you can put it in the chat window. Yeah, there's no right or wrong. Of course, there are some organization context that needs to come into play, but just a general sensing. Wow. Okay, I think everyone is in the right session, and we can wrap up now. No, but yeah, essentially, no matter what kind of problems you are solving here, we are putting it into the context of complex problems, mainly because we work a lot with agile teams, right? But in our day-to-day, right, that's the being agile part. Right, so you'll see that in the enabling loop, in the visual that we have put up, we have skills and we have mindset, and they need to work hand in hand together. Yeah, so if you have only one of this, it doesn't really work. So if you ask me, short question, mindset it will be that mindset. And if we want to start with anything first, it will be something that's not on the list here, but some of us mentioned quite a lot, which is curiosity, staying curious. Yeah, okay, all right, thank you. And also, Coco, Debbie, Zushin, if you have anything to chip in.
I saw one question from Shalom. Where is it? I cannot find it. Oh, did I miss anything? Let me see. Shalom is asking how the enabling loop is applied for the case study, right? The Wins DevOps, right? So maybe just a quick one. So for example, DevOps, the original team is in a constant, I think, OT mode. Every day is like 24/7 is in front of the screen to try to solve some of the operation issues. That's the team is in a very painful situation. So that's the opportunities that we can have the chance to help the team to get rid of this unhealthy and completely not sustainable way of working, right? So this is can be one of the opportunity. Then how do we enable explore options, because the team is actually run Scrum first, right? Somehow they find it, yes, they probably can run, but it's not the right way. Then they start to explore, shall we change our methodology, which is shift to a Kanban? Let's just try it out. This is explore options, right? Then they start slowly go into the mode of into actions, start to have the Kanban board systems. Yeah, it's not just 1 day or 1 month. It takes them like at least 6 months or 1 year to have the entire flow set up. That's the put into action. Then continuous improving. Even for now, at the very day of today, they are still constantly improve as a team. Yeah, right, Debbie?
Yes, that's right. Yes, in fact, the DevOps team, they tried out Scrum even before our coaching team came into the picture. Actually, yeah, correct. And there were a lot of challenges with using Scrum for their team, because I think most of the work items which the team was working on was actually too big to fit within a single too big to fit within a single sprint. Well, it's possible to break down the tasks, but it somehow just didn't work out for them. So I think Brian asked about what are some of the challenges for moving to Kanban. I would say that the top and foremost on my list would be mindset change and behavior change. Yes, there were a lot of things which the team were previously doing such things such as taking requests from everyone all over the place. Requests were coming in from via email, via Skype. People were walking up to the team to ask them to do things, etc. Right? So all these were actually all this was actually commonplace before we moved to Kanban. And because the team had been so used to doing all this, right, it was very difficult to actually change their mindset and change their behavior as we move over to Kanban, where they are only supposed to pick things up from the backlog within the Kanban on the Kanban board itself.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Debbie. I see a question now with probably also a suggested reading. Alaska, do you want to unmute and maybe share a little bit about Phoenix and Unicorn? Phoenix, I think some of us have read, and I know that there might be some in the room who have read, or I know that some in the room have read before. But Alaska, maybe the thinking behind this sharing.
So my personal thinking behind this sharing just comes from something that I first, when I read the books, I really enjoyed them because they tied together a lot of the theory that you get within Scrum, you get within Kanban, you get within Lean, all of the agile approaches, and DevOps, which is what they were based on. Secondly, when you read the Phoenix Project, it will be every project everyone in the room has ever worked on. It immediately provides a similar basis for everyone to understand how badly a project can go. And it actually shows a way forward in a readily accessible novel format. So I think of it as a textbook hidden in the format of a novel. And I suggest this for all my product owners to read, because my product owners aren't always the most technical people. But it covers a lot of the ideas that we were talking about just now, batch sizes, flow, work in progress limits, and it puts them in a conceptual framework, which is very easy for people to follow. And then it draws a line to tangible actions that you can put into place. Yes, and this t-shirt was one of my Welcome to Singapore t-shirts.
Okay. New to Singapore, so welcome to the Agile community.
Thank you. And last note, I would suggest that everyone reads the Phoenix project first, because that is more of a high-level product base. And then the Unicorn project, I found my friends who are developers, they get more out of that, because that actually goes down to more of the nitty-gritty of problems that can face when you are looking at your build processes and things that get in the way of actually creating your deliverables at the end of your iterations.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Lester, for sharing. So this is also a great chance for us to learn from each other. I'm going to pick one more question, which is, how do you measure the team satisfaction of the new way of working objectively? And Dipu, you have posted this question, right? So top on our head. A lot of times when organizations are undergoing transformation. So putting it to my teammates, how might we objectively measure, the team's new way of working, whether they're successful or not. Okay, yeah. So I think a lot of the times that objectivity, the quantitative and qualitative, we need a mix of it when we talk about the new way of working. Yeah, so that's what we have experienced. So you always have your employee engagement survey, but you might have, and I'm wondering if some of you might have some experiences that you want to share. Harshal, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Regina, for this, and thank you everyone for the great session. I can definitely share. I mean, just if anyone is not aware what HIPPO is, that's highest paid person's opinion, I guess. So person who speaks the loudest, or probably who is the strongest, get the win. I can tell from my experiences working with one of the agencies here, Ministry of Education, and there was a framework which was developed specifically when it comes to priority of the work. Whose work get prioritized, and specifically when you work in a multi-agency environment or even multi-stakeholder environment, which is generally most projects in government sectors, I guess. I saw this beautiful, what do you call it, a product prioritization matrix, which had various dimensions. And every dimension was like, every stakeholder comes in and independently, basically backed by the data, they say, okay, well, this certain dimensions is more important or less important or probably not important. And well, not something I can share right now from my mind, but it's just various indicators where you have to give a weight why certain things is important. And you basically show this is the data I have, and based on this is important. And you come up with a nice, prioritized list of items that you have to come up with. Well, that's easy, isn't it now? Because the number itself tells you the story rather than it's my opinion or versus your opinion. So as long as you have a good data, you have certain kind of framework in place, I think you can avoid this situation getting, who gets his way.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it boils down to that quantitative and qualitative, right? So when we ask, so usually, and I've shifted from asking teams, are you happy? But also contextualize it. Are you happy with the way that we're doing prioritization, for example? Or are you happy with the way that we're collecting feedback from users? Try and anchor it into some actionables. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Harshal, for that example. So
yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, so we're running out of time, and we're just going to take, I saw one interesting one, because in these days, there's always a question about, when we are working at agile teams, co-location is always preferred, but then there are challenges always, right? So what do we do? And I want to also end of the session with challenging everyone. In this session over here, how personable did you feel the interaction was today, right? Would it be, and of course, it will be different in person, right? You can see all of us, but as much as possible, you can see that all of our presenters try to at least show the top 1/4 of our being here, right? So, you know, the constraints we had 2 years to practice, and I always you know, when we work with teams, we are always saying that like 2 years to practice, we should get slightly better now. May not be perfect, but progression over perfection. And this idea, this mindset about creating connections online is so important, and it also helps us in building that team spirit. Because Debbie, you didn't meet your team for a very long time, right?
Yeah, I think I only met my team like less than 10 times in the past year. Yeah, so we actually we interacted frequently. In fact, on an everyday basis, we were talking to each other every day over Teams and Skype, and sometimes we also have virtual lunch sessions as well, where everyone turn on the video. Well, we usually don't turn on the video for most of our meetings because my team is everyone was rather introverted and shy. Okay, yeah. But for virtual team lunches, we actually made everyone turn on their video, and it's like the general feedback from the team was that it was quite a nice and heartwarming experience.
Yeah, thank you. All right, thanks, Debbie. Joyce, I guess that is you know, all the time that we have left, and apologies, we're overran, but I thought some of the questions were really useful also for everyone. Thank you.
No worries on that, definitely. I'm sure everyone here would rather would rather hear from the team more than less, actually. So thank you once again, everyone, for speaking at our session. So now we've come to the end of our StackX meetup today with the GovTech Services Agile Coach team. Thank you, everyone, again, for taking time to share not only our speakers, but also our participants. I've been visiting some of the meeting rooms, and I realized that the discussion really was pretty good, and we are very heartened to hear that as well. So let us know if you'll be trying this approach in your team, and tell us how it went. So we'll also need to get your feedback on this session. You can scan the QR code on the left, or we can send the link over in the chat shortly. And also join the StackX community, because the VOD will be up shortly on this portal. And here are the links. Yep. So stay tuned to our Telegram chat and Meetup platform for upcoming announcements on our events. We are going to have one very soon as well, so stay tuned. Thanks, everyone, and have a great lunch.